Everyone knows that to tell a good story, there's usually a beginning, something in the middle, and then the big finish, or at least some kind of an ending. And our message today is no exception. This morning, we are going to hear a fishing story. Actually, two fishing stories. And we just heard the first one, which happened near the end. We're about to hear another fishing story, which happened in the beginning. It's kind of confusing, I know. But I feel fairly confident that we will eventually figure everything out and it'll all come together. It may help to think of our message coming in between two bookends. Not just plain ordinary bookends, but very special, striking set of bookends. And even more powerful than these. Our fishing stories this morning are about the absolute true beginning and finishing with the ultimate end. Expressed as the Alpha and Omega letters of the Greek alphabet, Omega, Alpha, Alpha, Omega, the beginning and the end. Since both of our fishing stories are about Jesus and his disciples, I think that these Greek Alpha and Omega bookends may be quite fitting. Okay, so now we have our Alpha, Omega support us as we go about telling our stories in between. Here's the second fishing story, which again happened first. As Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, called Peter, and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. "Come, follow me," Jesus said, "and I will make you fishers of men." At once, they left their boats and followed him. Now, I would understand if they were to have immediately begun turning their boats to shore, maybe taken a moment to make sure that their tools of the trade, the nets and the boat, were safely stowed away, or at least had arranged for someone to take charge of them. Trusted people to take over the fishing business while they were away. But that's not what happened. Perhaps they just knew somehow that they would not be returning to the family business for a while. Maybe there were other friends or family members who were on the boat or near the boat or on the shore, or someone they trusted that maybe could have taken care of everything for Peter and Andrew. We don't know. But we do know that the Bible tells us at once they left their nets and followed him. Okay, on with verse 21. Going on from there, he saw two other brothers, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. They were on a boat with their father, Zebedee, preparing their nets. Jesus called to them, and immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. They immediately dropped everything to follow Jesus, just the same as what Peter and Andrew had done just moments before. But at least in this case, with John and James, their father apparently was left on the boat to tend to the job of putting everything away for them. I would imagine that Dad would have been a little bit angry at his boys deserting him so abruptly. Even so, can't you picture the sight of these 5 men walking away from the shore with 2 abandoned boats, either drifting on the water or maybe beached on the shore? Either way, we're given this particular fishing story because it was time for Jesus to begin his ministry. And these were the first men he selected to be with him on the journey. Young men, strong hands, straight backs, just your plain, ordinary, hard-working fishermen. In the beginning of Christ's ministry, Jesus had gone with He got out on his own fishing expedition, and he caught some very good ones, indeed. This is our second story about how Jesus first went fishing for his followers, each of them hand-selected. First, Simon Peter and his brother Andrew, and then on to the other boat together, James and John. All in all, I'd say a very good catch. So now we come back to the first fishing story, the one which we opened our message, John 21. We remember in Matthew 28 at the empty tomb when the women were told first by the angel and then by the resurrected Jesus, the women were told to go and tell the disciples to go to Galilee and to wait for Jesus who would soon come to them. Well, they did that, and they waited. And Peter, tired of waiting, or maybe he got hungry, but he said that he was going to go fishing. And the others went fishing with Peter. They were fishermen. They put their boat out to sea of Tiberias. And they were out there in the waters all night, casting out their nets, hauling them back in again, empty. Casting them out again, pulling them back in again, empty. All night, over and over again. They were exhausted. They were even more hungry. They went this all through the night, and then early the next morning, I would imagine that they were about at the end of their fishing for the night. And then they saw this man on the shore. It was the resurrected Jesus, but they did not recognize him at first. He called up to them, "Friends, haven't you any fish?" "No," they answered. Now, Jesus, of course, knew the answer, but he asked anyway. And I think this is that bit about some humor from the Lord. But he didn't leave them there. He wasn't cruel to them. He said, "Throw out your nets on the right side of the boat. You will find some." And I'm sure they were near exhausted and very hungry and about fed up with it all for the night. Even so, they did as the stranger advised. And what happened? When they did, they were unable to haul the net in because of the large number of fish. Now, I heard it said that you will never forget the questions that you missed on your driver's license test, and that very well may be true. Because one day, we had a pop quiz in a seminary class. Not a written one, but one of those kind of tests where the professor called on the students one at a time. He asked a question. And I think the teacher was joking when he said it was worth 45% of our final grade. And I hope he was joking, because when it got to me, the question that he asked was, how many fish were in the net? I had no idea. 12? No. 153 were in the net. And I am here to tell you, anyone can ask me that question on my deathbed. And I will tell you straight away that it was 153 fish in that net. Back to the story. This was the second time that Jesus spoke to his followers. Both times they were in a boat. He was on the shore. The first time they did not realize that they were soon going to become followers of him. This time they knew that they were disciples of Jesus and did as instructed by waiting for him to return to them, the resurrected master. Well, their master had arrived and had helped them to actually make a great catch of fish. When they finally got their nets filled with, how many fish? They got their nets filled with 153 fish. And then they noticed that Jesus was waiting next to a fire, burning coals. And the Lord was cooking his own fish and had some bread. Verse 10. Jesus said to them, "Bring some of the fish you have just caught." Jesus invited them all to join him for some breakfast. Professor, I'm afraid I don't know how many fishes were cooking on Jesus' fire. Didn't say. Jesus said to them, come, have breakfast. Tired, cold, wet, hungry, they gathered around Jesus' fire. None of the disciples dared to ask him, who are you? They knew it was the Lord. They all knew it was their master. Jesus was with them once again, but no one wanted to speak first or do anything to break the tension. And I can just sense their unease and strain being lifted. Jesus came, took the bread, gave it to them, as he did the same with the fish. How wonderful that must have been to be there. Enjoying breakfast on the beach, gathered around a warm fire, watching the sun rise with Christ Jesus as your host. This was now the third time Jesus appeared to his disciples after he was raised from the dead. There's one more last thing to notice here. Spirits don't eat. Ghosts don't consume food. Jesus was eating breakfast with his closest disciples. And how wonderful, once again, to be reassured that he really was there with him. Jesus was not dead. Jesus was not a spirit or a ghost. And Jesus still cared for the health and comfort of his followers. He loved them. And our good news is that just as Jesus kept his promise to meet them in Galilee, we also have this same promise of God that he still loves us. And he promises us to meet us in his heavenly kingdom. Just as Jesus made all things ready for his weak and weary followers to dine with him on the Sunrise Beach, we have come to the end of our story. We were held together by the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last. Jesus is the Son of God, our salvation, and the Christ. He has gone to prepare us a place to be with him. Each of us, every one of us. I go to prepare a place for you. He has gone, but one day we will be reunited again. We will be sitting at the table prepared by the hosts of all hosts. Jesus will be passing us the meal that he has prepared for us. Now hear this. This has to be the best fishing story ever. Amen.